What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another Roster Bubble Series video. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when the live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. We are about 14 subs away from the 1.4K mark. Please subscribe, share out, do all the good stuff. We appreciate you guys as always. So, another Roster Bubble Series video for today, and these usually last about 5 to 10 minutes long. In these types of videos, I take a player that's on the cusp of being cut. I talk about their background, their competition, how they could win a spot on the roster, how they could lose a spot on the roster, and then at the end, a prediction. So today, we're going to talk about Kalil Pimpleton, who is an interesting player. I thought he was going to get playing time last year, but let's get right into it. So he's 5'9", 172, 5'9". That's about my height, maybe a little bit more than my height, but 24 years old, 172, undrafted free agent, signed by the Detroit Lions 2022 out of Central Michigan, though it is absolutely worth noting that he actually started his career at Virginia Tech, played 4 games, then took off the 2018 season, 2019-2021, he played with Central Michigan. So to quickly go over those stats, we'll start with 2021 because it's technically the most recent. He was 40 yards from 1,000, 62 receptions, 960 yards, 15.5 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns. Also, he had some usage on the ground. 16 attempts, 84 yards, 5.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. The year before that, the COVID season, 277 yards total in terms of receiving, 2 touchdowns, 26 receptions in 6 games. And then rushing-wise, he got a little bit more. We got about the same amount of attention, a little bit more in yardage than 2021. But 16 rushes, 134 yards, 8.4 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. And then at this first year at Central Michigan, 14 games, 82 receptions, 894 yards, 6 touchdowns, 10.9 yards per reception. And then 7 rushes, 81 yards, 11.6 yards per carry. So that is that. And also, because this is important, it's going to be part of the diagnosis and the profile, he is an asset on special teams, specifically in the punt returning game. Did not do anything with Virginia Tech. 2019 with Central Michigan, 24 returns for 208 yards, 8.7 yards per return. Then in 2020, the COVID season, 8 returns for 55 yards, a total of 6.9 yards per return, and also had 2 kick returns for 26 yards, 13 yards per return. And then he really sprouted with Central Michigan in his last year as a junior. Because of the COVID season, you could get, another year as a junior, as senior, whatever the hell you are. But 13 games, in those 13 games, 16 punt returns, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 19 yards per return. So some characteristics before we get to what he did last preseason with the Detroit Lions. He's also a good juggler, by the way. And then we'll go into the other stuff. So dynamic punt returner. Obviously, you see that. He's very reliable on special teams, which the Giants need that. Good gadget player for end-around slot play. You see that a lot with the highlights in the film. You could use him in the backfield, all types of different stuff. He's got speed. He's got solid speed. Now, some of the negatives that come in, because he obviously was an undrafted free agent, you get more negatives, get more cons as you go along in the draft. Probably not an outside receiver. He's got a small catch radius. He's slow in and out of breaks. It has to deal with the size and the fact that he's only 172. Struggles versus press man coverage and ball security can be concerned in terms of concentration drops and occasional fumbles. So those are some characteristics. But with the Detroit Lions last year, Pimpleton had 9 receptions, 69 yards. This is preseason, by the way. 16 targets, and then 1 kick return for 30 yards. So, obviously that'd be good for the Giants. I can't remember the last time the Giants had a kick return for 30 yards other than the Deshaun Corbin one against the Pats. But 9 receptions, 69 yards. I didn't watch those receptions. I just looked at the stats, so it could be him dropping the ball or quarterbacks overthrown, whatever. But anyway, let's dig into his competition. It's a lot. It's, me combining 3 separate areas. The kick return room, the punt return room, and the wide receiver room. Jaden Mickens, who's his competition pretty much everywhere because he's a wide receiver. Also, he's a punt and kick returner. He did that for the Bucks, did that for the Jaguars. He's experienced in that area, and he's actually played in NFL games. Gary Brightwell, obviously he's competing for one of those running back spots, but if he could keep a roster spot, it's going to be through special teams. And he did some kick returning for the New York Giants, was the main kick returner last year for the New York Giants. Jalen Hyatt, who's been mostly playing with the third team throughout camp and mini camp and all that sort of stuff. Nothing to worry about, but they did try him a kick returner a little bit. Eric Gray, the same thing applies. He's going to get his snaps in, but he's going to make the roster either way. Though, if they don't want to use him right away, they use Barkley and Breida. Eric Gray, they could use in the kick return game or the punt return game. He has experience in those areas. David Sills is a wide receiver. Cole Beasley is a wide receiver. Beasley has not touched special teams since 2018, so I doubt he's going to be any help there. You could factor in Jamison Crowder, but he's currently on PUP. Jeff Smith, who's a wide receiver, not really any return experience. He's just a gunner. Bryce Ford Wheaton, no return experience, wide receiver, undrafted free agent out of West Virginia. Did make a couple of nice plays on Wednesday, by the way. Darnay Holmes, who's battling for the slot position, but he's also battling for the kick return / punt returner spot. He did that in college. And then Colin Johnson is a wide receiver. So how can Pimpleton win a roster spot? Work on separation skills. That's going to be one of the biggest things. I mean, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, they've said it 100 times this offseason. We wanted guys with speed and that can separate because obviously that didn't happen last year. They needed to really drop a formula to get guys open, and it sometimes, it didn't even work. So work on separation skills. I mean, I don't think Pimpleton's ever going to be an outside receiver, but, if you blow some guys away in practice or, in the preseason games against solid corners or solid depth corners on the outside, I mean, that opens eyes, not just for the Giants, but around the league. Glue your hands to the ball. If separation isn't your key thing, just be, on the football at all times. Glue your hands to the football. Make as many catches as possible. Try to stay away from drops because, there's always the two things. You could either be a guy that separates, he's got a ton of speed, or a contested catch guy, or just, a guy that catches a lot of passes, high catch rate, stuff like that. Based on the preseason games and the stats, he's not that type of guy, but in order to make this roster, you kind of have to catch as many footballs as possible and show your special teams abilities and skill sets. I want to see Kalil Pimpleton at punt returner. Now, I was kind of begging for that last year, but explosiveness in college, why not? I mean, I will leave it up, obviously, to the New York Giants coaching staff to put him out there. Mike Adams and I forget who else, Tommy McGahee. I will leave it up to those guys to determine who the punt returner is and the kick returner and whatnot. But if you place Pimpleton there, Pimpleton needs to give it his all because, he doesn't really have a direct path onto another roster right now. Most likely going to be a practice squad or even just sitting out at this moment. So how can he lose? Separation and break speed is still a work in progress. I think that would be a big knockoff. The Giants have a ton of wide receivers in right now, but they also have a ton of guys in the slot who are injured. Pimpleton is a slot guy. Beasley is a slot guy. Those guys are healthy. Crowder, Robinson, and Shep are on PUP. So make the most of your opportunities. Don't make any concentration drops either, because obviously we see that with Darius Slayton sometimes. We're going to see it, a few times this season. It's going to happen. But the Giants would like less of those as possible. And if you show, in the limited amount of snaps that you get, you're not great at separation, your break speed is met, but you catch the football, I mean, that kind of adds something because the Giants need reliable pass catchers. Marcus Johnson dropping that pass at the goal line was not great against the Jaguars. Richie James, a couple of drop passes. David Sills. Once again, the Giants need pass catchers. They need separators. And, we'll see what happens. But also, if he doesn't make most of his special teams opportunities, I think he's close to done in terms of this roster because, I mean, he's got a lot of competition in that room, no doubt. But let's see. Jaden Mickens, I don't think he has a touchdown within the last year or two on special teams. I could be wrong. Or else he probably would not be on the Giants roster right now. The Jaguars probably would not have let him go. Gary Brightwell definitely doesn't have a touchdown. I think he's got the most recent explosiveness in the punt return game. Let's just, get down to the bare bottom of it. He's got explosiveness. He's young. He's small. And he's got, gadget speed, if you will. if he doesn't make the most of his opportunities and he's given all these traits and he has the background from college to really make a name for himself as a special teams guy, then nothing else is going to be much of a factor if you can't do that. Because Pimpleton's not going to be a starter. He's going to be a 5, 6, maybe even 7th receiver. And the way those guys get on the roster is by playing special teams. So how can you win? Work on separation skills, glue your hands to the ball, show you're a special teams asset. How can you lose? Separation, break speed is still a work in progress, doesn't make most of the special teams opportunities, and concentration drops. So prediction, unfortunately, I have Pimpleton being cut. I think there's a lot of crowdedness in the wide receiver room. I think the same about that in the return room. It just doesn't look like the Giants favor him enough. Now, obviously, like a lot of these, I can be wrong, and he could sprout off, or maybe he's limited in some things, and the Giants say, hey, listen, we're going to keep him on the roster right away. But I don't know. I don't get that feeling about Pimpleton. I think last year, if they played him and saw something, maybe they would have, I would say played him more or something like that. But with that being said, I don't see him making the roster. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. More training camp recaps, more roster bubble videos as football season heats up. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool.